Robert Plank Show, episode 175. View from the top. Perspective, mastermind, abundance mindset, and decision making with Aaron Walker. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about building an online business. Our guest today is businessman and life coach Aaron T. Walker. Now, Aaron has inspired many through his leadership, mentorship, and consistent pursuit of excellence. He enjoys helping others and believes experience is a great teacher. From 35 years of entrepreneurship and marriage have given Aaron a wealth of experience, and he continues to reach new heights and broaden his perspective of the terrain by examining his experiences and growing from them. All that sounds awesome. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hey, Robert. Thanks a lot, buddy. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you about 1,000 times right back at you. So, let's talk about some of this stuff. Your bio and stuff like that says that you've had all this experience and you've had all these, trials and tribulations and stuff like that. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and about some of these struggles that you've had.
All right, buddy. Listen, I'll take you way back real quick. I don't want this interview to be about my success stories, but I want it to be about your audience and how they can take a few nuggets from what I'm talking about, maybe apply it to their life so they can be more successful and possibly significant in the process. So just for context, a 30,000 foot view, we'll go way back. I was 14 years old, started working at a local retail shop, fell in love with the business. We had no money, so I had to find somebody with money, and I did. Two very successful businessmen. At 18 years old, I opened my first retail shop. It really did well. Got married 2 weeks out of high school, and so my wife came on board and helped me at night. We decided to pour all the money back into the business and not take it because we couldn't screw it up, Robert. This is maybe my only chance at being successful. My wife was, had less than I did, and we had nothing. And so we only had to go up. And so there was no way we could go down any further. God really blessed the business. At 21 years old, we had a paid for business. We said, well, hey, let's do it again. So we did very successfully. And we did that. We repeated that exercise 4 times. When I was 27 years old, we sold out to a Fortune 500 company in Fort Worth, Texas. And so we were finished. Like nothing at 19, retired at 27. And I thought, man, life doesn't get any better than this. This is the American dream. Until my wife woke me up in the middle of the day and she said, this is not the guy I married. You're taking naps in the middle of the day. You've gained 50 pounds in 18 months. And I said, well, I don't have any reason to get up. I'm pretty bored. We've got money. I don't have to do anything and I don't have any purpose. So I went back, bought the store I worked for when I was a kid. We spent the next 10 years building that 4 times the size it was. We took the resources and effort and energy and poured into that business. I was 40 years old at this time. I was headed to the office. It was bright and early, August 1st, 2001, about 15 years ago. And a pedestrian was crossing the street, didn't look my way, and I ran over and killed a pedestrian on August 1st, 2001. And Robert, there's where my life took a real interesting twist. I realized at that time I had had great success. All of my success had been about myself and nothing had been about anyone else. There was no significance in my life. And I started thinking about it and decided to sell the business, at which we did. And I took the next 5 years off. I didn't do anything for 5 years. We traveled, we built a new house. And then my wife woke me up from another nap. She said, you're getting fat and lazy again. It's time to do something. So we go in the construction business. We'd built a new house during this 5-year break. And we took that construction company to #1 builder 3 consecutive years and over the next 9 years here in Middle Tennessee. We live in a really cool place called Nashville, Tennessee. It's growing. It's one of the most visited spots in the nation right now. It's growing more rapidly than anywhere. And I thought, well, it'd be a good time to really build this, and we did. And then I turned 50 and I said, I'm through now, I'm retiring, and I did. And a couple of my mastermind members for 2 decades now, one of them is Dave Ramsey, one's Dan Miller, one is Ken Abraham. Some of those names you may or may not recognize encouraged me to coach. So I started View from the Top. Now we have national and international clients. We have 7 mastermind groups. We have a community online. And I get to help ordinary men become extraordinary in their daily lives. So that's my story from a 30,000 foot view.
Nice, and that is a crazy story, and it sounds about like 5 or 10 lifetimes in one. So like looking back at all that, when you said, it sounds like that there were times of, a lot of growth, and then some kind of like you hit a wall or of some kind, and then sort of things didn't work, like things fell apart in a different way. And so, I mean, looking back at it, I mean, what do you think you were doing wrong when these bad things happen, and what do you think you're doing correctly when the good times happened?
Yeah, well, you live long enough in business, you're going to have ebbs and flows. There's going to be valleys and mountaintops. I don't care what business you're doing. The markets change, you change, your desires change, partnerships change, the economy changes. A lot of things we can't control. It's beyond our control. Some of the things that I did, I'm a creator developer. I'm not a maintainer manager. And so when things get going along real well, rocking through, just managing it, I get bored. I need to blow it up or start something else or sell out. And I've done that consistently. I've owned a dozen businesses now, and I just get bored. And so sometimes it's for the good, sometimes it's for the bad. Maybe I should have kept the pedal down a little bit further and done a little more. But once it gets plateaued, I kind of lose interest and I sell the business and start another one. Some of the things that happen to us bad are not necessarily things that we can control either. I mean, I killed a pedestrian. That certainly wasn't in my control. He just didn't look my way and ran out. But it did adversely affect me for a period of time. You don't get over those things. God's grace just comes alongside you and you learn how to deal with them. And that's what happened with me. And I couldn't just sit down, and that's one of the things that I want to convey to your listeners is that you may be experiencing something devastating in your personal life right now. Maybe it's finances, maybe it's divorce, maybe it's a failed business, but you can't stay there. You've got to get up. You cannot stay knocked down. This is not a trial run. We don't get a do-over. We've got to pick ourselves up and move on. And that's what my wife encouraged me to do. And I did. And as a result of that, now we've been probably more successful in any business we've ever had. I could have stayed down, but I didn't. I got up, and that's what I want to encourage you guys to do.
And man, and when I hear about some of those things that happen, like what I'm hearing is that, I mean, anything can change in a split second. I mean, someone can walk in front of you at any
Mm.
moment, and it's one of those things, like there's some kind of saying that's like, have you ever thought about how many times you've narrowly avoided your death? And probably a bunch of times throughout life, but you just never realized it. And so, when you're talking about some of these things that happened, like you got bored and decided to, sell the business or get rid of the business, or, when you were, very young, you got married and you started a business and did all these things. Like, is there some kind of secret to that making decisions quickly kind of thing? Like, do you think that your personality, being the creator developer, has a lot to do with that? Or what can people do to make better decisions and make them quickly and not have to waste 5 or 10 years on something?
That's a great question, Robert. Thank you for asking that. Yes, I believe that indecision is a killer. And even in indecision, you've made a decision not to make a decision, right? You think you're postponing it. All you're doing is kicking the can down the road. I make a decision pretty quick. And I've done that my entire career because you can get caught up in that and it will not serve you well long term. You'll have the analogy, the paralysis of analysis. And I don't believe in that. I believe in gathering the data, consulting with people that are experienced, and I call it firing the gun and riding the bullet. It's time to go. And so that's what we've done. I don't say that recklessly. I think you need to do your due diligence, and I think you need to make wise decisions. Dan Miller's been my personal coach and mentor for about 2 decades now, and he taught me years ago, he said, never take over 2 weeks to make any decision. Doesn't matter the magnitude of it. There's nothing that should take you longer than 2 weeks to make a decision. And whether it's moving, changing occupations, starting a business, or selling one, it shouldn't take you longer than 2 weeks. And that has served me well. Otherwise, you'll get caught up in indecision. The other thing is, when I was a child, we didn't have any money. And I mean, literally, we didn't have any money. I was raised in a house that my dad paid $6,500 for, that we later lost in bankruptcy. So we were very, very poor. I know all about being broke. And my mom had a saying when I was a child. She would not allow us to say the word can't. She'd say, you might not be able to do it, but you're going to try. And she had this saying, can't, couldn't do it, and could did it all. And she really preached that to us our entire life. Well, as a result of that, because she wouldn't allow us to say can't, I had to try some things, push through these upper limit challenges. And as a result of that, I was successful. And so it built self-esteem. And so now I have that mindset. You know, my wife even uses it against me, Robert. She'll say, I'm not sure you can do that. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, Robin, don't do that. You know, now I've got to show you I can do it. The other thing is fear. Most people are afraid, and most of the time it's a failure. Well, first of all, you've got to get your mind wrapped around that. I don't believe in failure. I believe you either succeed or you learn. And the things that didn't work out well, don't repeat them. The things that did work well, do more of it. And so fear missing an opportunity more than you fear failure. And that is the mindset I have. See, not succeeding to me is in not trying. And I couldn't lay in bed at night and think, would it have worked? I've got to try it. And as a result of that, it may or may not work out like I had planned, and I just know not to repeat it. So those are the two mantras that I live by. Can't, couldn't do it, and could, did it all. And I fear missing an opportunity more than I fear failure.
I like that, and I think that a lot of people who are up and coming entrepreneurs and people like that, I think they really need to hear that kind of message. And I think that I've had advice like that throughout the years as well, Aaron. Just as far as like this word or this saying or this attitude to phase it out, right? And along those lines, like someone, I think it was like Mark Joyner or someone said like don't, or in his office they didn't use the word wait. So kind of along the same lines, right? Like everyone said we're gonna wait for this or wait for that, and as soon as they stop doing it, it's like that saying where the Eskimos have 200 different words for ice because there's ice a lot in in Eskimo land, but no words for war because that is not a thing that they use. So there's something I'm hearing that there's something to that as far as not getting into those habits or using those bad phrases or those bad words, and instead of being more positive. And sort of along those lines, you mentioned that you have these really good connections, right? Like some of these guys like Dave Ramsey and other people that some of us recognize and some of us don't. And so could you tell us a little bit about that as far as like the power of the mastermind and the power around being around positive and successful and fulfilled people to kind of lift you up and not drag you down?
Yeah, here's the cool part about that. Dave Ramsey in 1995 gave me advertising to try him. He was on one radio station in Nashville, Tennessee. No one even knew who he was, never heard of him. And he approached me and said, I want you to advertise on my show. And I said, no, thank you. I'm not interested. And he started laughing and he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a week free just to try me. So fast forward, we've been his longest running sponsor for 21 years. We've been on his show, either a company I own or have owned. Dave Ramsey wasn't the Dave Ramsey then that he is now. Now he's on 600 radio stations. He speaks to 10 million people a day. He's got a very, very successful company, about to take his employees to 1,000. He's at about 600 or 700 now. But when I started with him in advertising, there were 3 people that worked there, him being one of them. And so we got to see up close him growing that business, and there's no quit in Dave Ramsey. And I kind of pride myself in being that as well. We're high D on the DISC profile. We're type A personalities. We're aggressive. We go after it. And you got to surround yourself. Jim Rohn says you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, that's true because the people in our mastermind groups, Dan Miller's another one, owns 48 Days to the Work You Love. 15 years ago, he had just started that company, and the relentlessness, the grit, the determination, the perseverance, being around each other to lift each other up, to edify, to help, to encourage, and then to slow down, and then to call you out and to stop you, to have non-biased people in your life that have nothing to gain or lose as a result of what they tell you will serve you well. If you want to be around people that are always just catering to whatever you want, and they're telling you exactly what you want to hear, like your dad or your mom or your girlfriend, I always tell people, don't get in masterminds with those people. If they're partners with you or they're kin to you, don't get in a mastermind with them because they're biased. They're going to tell you what you want to hear because they want to be liked. You get in a mastermind group with a bunch of people like I've listed, they have nothing to gain or lose, and you subject yourself to the scrutiny of those people, they'll call you out. They'll tell you what you don't need to do. They'll encourage you to do more of this or that. You got to surround yourself with people that are willing to go there. You got to have a backbone pretty thick to be in some of these mastermind groups, and you've got to be willing to subject yourself to that scrutiny and listen. I'd rather be embarrassed in front of my mastermind group than the world. And I want those 10 or 12 guys around me to tell me the truth, to be candid, to be honest, and to take me places that's too uncomfortable for me to go. And so the value of the mastermind group, you ask me what that is, it is absolutely everything. Without a question, I have to attribute huge amounts of my success to that group.
And I like that. What really stuck out with what you just said there about that is that either, I mean, your choice is either to make this mistake in the small environment or make the mistake to the entire world. If you have an idea for, your next book, your next business, your next product, whatever, you can either run it by the mastermind and kind of flush it out there, or make this big mistake that might cost a bunch of money, take a bunch of time, but because you had the mastermind to try it out, and they weren't just the people who you normally interact with, the people that actually challenge you, then you get a lot more done, a lot more shortcut. Plus, there's that motivation aspect of it as well.
Well, here's the thing, Robert. Most people want to build a facade. They want each other to think, I've got it together. I know what I'm doing. They don't want to be embarrassed. And as a result of that, they fail miserably. But when the veil comes down, when you can lower down that veil and say, hey, I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be honest. Tell me what you think. You better be prepared, because I can only tell you, man, how many times I've had to leave with my head ducked down. It's like, dadgum, I thought it was good, and it sucked. It was not good at all. And these guys had the courage to tell me that because they wanted good for me, right? They had nothing to gain. They had nothing to lose. So why would they not tell me the truth? Now we've spent 2 decades together, right, as a result of that, because we're honest with each other. Authenticity is huge. And until you're willing to let that veil down, people are not going to tell you the truth. When you stiff your arm out, and you'll only let people get so close, that's as far as they're going to go with you. But when you're totally transparent and you're like, I don't know what in the crap I'm doing in this, and I need your help, then they're like, okay, man, here's what you need to do. And then you do the same for them. Listen, I've been called out so many times in that group, I can't even tell you. They say, what kind of idiot are you? This is insane. This is terrible. Or, Aaron, this is good. Collectively, the general consensus of the multitude, it's like, man, you've got it. And I'm like, oh no, I'm hearing these voices in my head. Don't listen to that. That's your upper limit challenge. Gay Hendricks talks about it a lot in The Big Leap. He said, we all have those voices. We all lay in bed at night. Robert, if you'll be honest, you do too. It's like, who's going to listen to me anymore on my podcast? Or who's going to listen to me about my online membership sites? You have these. I still do. I've been doing it 38 years. I'm still like, who's going to hire me to be their coach? You've got valuable information, but we have upper limit challenges, and we've got to push through those. Man, it is so much easier when you surround yourself with other people that want to go forward too, that encourage you and take you on or slow you down. It just depends on what you need at that time. And the mastermind group is absolutely a must-have.
So do you think along those lines that it's the natural tendency of a lot of people to find like almost like fake fulfillment, or to sell themselves short? And what I mean by that is that, we've talked about a lot of examples today about how like somebody might say that, well, their dream is to build a business and change the world and make an impact or whatever. But then somewhere along the way, people compromise and say, well, instead of actually doing this thing, I'm just going to procrastinate. Or they say that I need to have this group of people to help me, and instead of finding a good mastermind, they just settle in for what the friends and family think. And so, I mean, do you see that, or do you think that happens with a lot of people? Like they think that they found the goal, but they really kind of move the goal down to maybe be 10% of their full potential, and by having the mastermind or having the challenges and the struggles and the ebbs and flows, they get through the growing pains to this even bigger pot of gold, so to speak.
Well, here's the thing, is that we all resort back to familiarity and we stay there regardless of the pain because we at least know how bad the pain is in this spot. And if we go and do something new, we don't know what the outcome is. And it forces us back to the familiarity. And so the mastermind group helps get you out of that. It's like, yes, it's unfamiliar, uncharted territories, but you don't know what you haven't experienced. You don't know what you don't know. And a lot of guys can help take you there. And we just can't do it alone. And that's the reason that we have to have these guys around us. Absolutely, I'd say 90% of the people bring back their ambitions, bring back their goals, and they settle for less when they could have so much more.
And I'm hearing a lot of these people that you work with and associate with and are in masterminds with. A lot of them have this sort of abundance mentality where they're completely fine. Number one, being honest with you because they know they're going to get that honesty back, but also doing you a favor or trying you out, like that example with the thing with the Dave Ramsey stuff. And so, I mean, could you tell us about that? About why being abundance important, and maybe if people aren't on that right track, how they can become more like you in that respect.
Here's the thing, Robert, without a question, no question in my mind, the more of an abundance mindset you have and the ability to give and give and give and then ask, that's the mindset we have to have. Most people play and hold their cards close to the chest. They don't reveal anything. They don't want to share. I just got off a call. One of the guys in my mastermind group, here's what he said. Aaron, I don't want you to think I'm going in competition with you, but I'm going to be starting a mastermind. And he said, I wanted to go ahead and tell you here. I said, I'll help you start it. And the room got quiet. He's like, what? I'll help you start it. There's millions of people. Listen, I want you to be successful. I want you to do good. It changed the whole course of the conversation. I don't know if he thought I was going to be upset, but I really feel that way. I want to, Vanderchuck wrote a book, Jab, 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 Right Hook. It's the analogy is boxing, but for us, it's give, give, give. Now you have an opportunity to ask. That's what I was missing. When I had the car wreck and I look back, what I was missing was significance, and that was helping other people achieve their goals and dreams. Now, Robert, here's the thing. I had great success in all these stores that I owned, sold out to a Fortune 500 company. I had all that stuff, but I hadn't done anything for anybody else. Everything was about me and my family. And I felt a little bit guilty. I'm like, man, if I were to die today, if that'd been me that got hit, what would my eulogy have been? It would have been, well, he came from a very broke family, made quite a bit of money at an early age, and he had enough for himself. But there was no significance. Nobody could say I'd done anything for anybody else. And it changed for me 15 years ago. And I've started looking outward. How can I help Robert Plank in promoting his show? What can I do to give? How can I help him achieve his goals, his dreams? And as a result of that, the natural reciprocity has happened. And now we're more successful financially and significantly than I've ever been in any business I've ever owned, probably collectively. And it's having the abundance mindset. Please, folks, listen, there's plenty for everybody. If you will look outward and be the giver and not the taker, Adam Grant wrote about it in his book, Givers or Takers. You're one or the other. Be the giver, not the taker.
Nice. I mean, a rising tide lifts all boats, and even some of those examples that you mentioned there are, like there are blessings in disguise, right? Because even you hitting and killing a pedestrian is a really really traumatic thing, really sad situation. Not a lot can be done about it, but it sounds like that in a lot of ways was a turning point for you and kind of made you reflect. And you know what, too, Mr. Aaron, I got a text earlier this morning that today is the 1 year anniversary of me falling and breaking my ankle in two places, and they had to cut me open and put some metal in there, and I had to get myself weaned off the pills and all that. But you know breaking that ankle and lying in bed kind of made me reflect, and through the last year or so, like being able to get back on my feet and being able to walk and run a little bit, like has just kind of opened my eyes, and even in the long term made things better. And I think that what I'm hearing a lot of is when these traumatic or these unexpected or unplanned things happening. I mean, we can either choose to let it push us around, or we can kind of find our deeper meaning, I guess. And so along those lines, you mentioned earlier that you have a show of some kind, right? And you have different guests and people like that.
Yeah, we have a podcast that Daniel Bauer is the host of View from the Top podcast. I don't host that, but we have what's called the community, and we have men from all over the world that are participants in our community. And I interview guests each and every week, and I've had some amazing guests week after week after week, and I get to interview those folks and then share it with our community.
Cool. And so, I mean, what sets View from the Top apart from a lot of these other, interview kind of shows?
Yeah, well, View from the Top is an organization that I do one-on-one coaching. I have men literally from around the world that I coach one-on-one. And then we have Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind groups where I facilitate each of these groups personally. We have about 7 groups. We have 10 men in a group, and I facilitate those groups each and every week. And then we have the community, which is a very affordable way to interact with View from the Top and with me individually. But I'd say what sets us apart is, quite honestly, we look at it from an abundance mindset. We look at it as how we can interact with others, how we can help people achieve their goals and dreams. We have an accountability tool where we rank ourselves 1 to 10 on 10 different things each and every week. We have themes every month. Like this month, it's on execution. We're reading a great book by Brian Moran called The 12-Week Year. Every week we have a theme. Every week we have a book. Every month we have a book that we're reading, and we're trying to keep our priorities in a semblance of order where you have to put the big rocks in first. Rory Vaden wrote a great book called Procrastinate on Purpose, because time management is a myth. I mean, that's not such thing. We have to decide what's important. And so each and every month we decide these are the things that we're going to be working on, and we keep the big rocks out front, or the things that are priority. For me, it's like faith and family, then finances, and then the relationships. And so we look at what's important and we do the action steps in order to obtain it. And we do that through helping one another.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing from that is that it's important to know where you're at, and it's important to keep going and not slip and not backslide into comfortable but unsuccessful areas. And even when you were mentioning some of your experiences with the mastermind about how, you can be honest with someone, or they kind of, give you a little bit of a hard time, or you help them with something out. Like, as you were saying those stories, I was kind of thinking to myself, well, dang, how does someone else jump in on that? So am I right in that there's that kind of interaction with the View from the Top community?
Yeah, it's constant. We have private Facebook pages where there's resources being shared nonstop. We have the accountability side of it. We have 2 live meetups a year for the mastermind group. We have 5 live meetups across the country for the community. We're constantly looking for ways to give resources and share. We have people going in business with each other. There's crowd funding going on through different endeavors that people are attempting to do. There's promotion, there's cross promotion, there's guest blogging, there's podcast interviews. We even started a podcast just for our community to promote your products, services, or whatever widget you're trying to sell. We're always looking for ways to promote you, right? And as a result of that, we get promoted nicely, and then our community continues to grow. And it's just a different perspective in looking outward rather than looking inward.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like you thought of everything, and it sounds like some pretty awesome stuff. So where can people go to find out about that and join all that good stuff?
Yeah, I appreciate that. You can go to our website, viewfromthetop.com. Everything is there. It's pretty self-explanatory and easy. But before we go, I brought a little gift for your listeners, if it's okay if I give it away.
Yeah, perfect.
You can go to viewfromthetop.com/Robert Plank, all in lowercase letters. There are 3 documents, Robert, that I use every day. One is a personal assessment, to where you just sit alone and you look at this document, you answer about 30 questions. There's not a right or wrong answer, but it talks about your identity, your ideals, your relationships. It talks about social activities that you're involved in. It talks about your faith, your family. It just asks very pointed questions, just thought-provoking questions. I wrote another document called What Do I Want? And Robert, quite honestly, most people just want more. They want bigger, better, shinier, faster. But that's not necessarily oftentimes what's best for you. And this document helps you understand and realize what may be best for you. The third one is steps to a productive day. It's kind of like a to-do list on steroids. I'm a very methodical, regimented person. I start my day very regimented early in the mornings, and I walk you through your day and the things that you need to be most productive. And once you understand who you are and what you want, you can use this steps to a productive day to keep you centered and be the most productive. You just go to viewfromthetop.com/Robert Plank to find those 3 documents for free.
Awesome. I mean, that's a lot of cool stuff to give away for free, and I think that I think this is going to help a lot of people, especially because you said a few times on this episode now that you don't know what you don't know, and a lot of people I think just are drifting through life or kind of going directionless, and they're going to be having these ebbs and flows in business, and to be on that track with a loving community and a lot of people who care and want to help, I mean, sounds great, along with taking that inventory and knowing where they're at and where they want to go. So viewfromthetop.com/Robert Plank. And I want to thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on the show and telling us all kinds of entertaining stories and giving us all kinds of wisdom. I mean, decades of stuff that you had to go through, and hopefully we can give everyone those tools so that they don't have to, like, they're still going to go through the struggles, but they don't have to suffer through all that learning. They can go into it with a better mindset. So I really appreciate you, Aaron, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you.
This is Robert Plank, and I really appreciate you listening. Please go right now to robertplank.com/iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review the show.